And welcome everybody to the Huddle, King of Night's weekly streaming sports talk show. I'm Jason Barr, joined by Pat Parris. Pat, we're back for 2026.
We are back for 2026, and well, it's been a crazy week and a half that we've had, and now we get set for maybe focusing more on basketball now that football's done.
And we'll put a wrap on the Arizona football season, and we'll talk about the Holiday Bowl. And first, we'll start with our Huddle poll question. You know what it has to do with the opt-outs. Should those three Arizona players in the secondary, we're talking about Traden Stukes, Dalton Johnson, and Genesis Smith, should they have opted out of the 2026 Holiday Bowl? Yes, that's one choice. In order to get ready, prepare their investment in becoming an NFL draftee, possibly. They're not top-round guys. Or no, hey, those guys were not team players. They should have suited up with their team for the Holiday Bowl. You can vote A or B. Pat, do you want to reveal now what you're voting, or do you want to wait?
I think you already know what my vote is. Well, I'm old school, Jason, and I get it. I have a problem with a lot of things going on right now in college football and college basketball, from NIL to the transfer portal and to the Wild West mentality of what's going on with everything. But when it comes down to the game itself, that's where I have a problem with guys opting out of bowl games. And that is, I get it. If you're a first-round draft choice or even a second-round draft choice, and you've got a lot of money on the line and at stake, yeah, I see protecting the assets and protecting the future. But when you're guys that may not get drafted or won't get drafted till day 3, what are you sitting out for? Go out there and play a hell of a game and show on a national stage that you can play against a terrific quarterback like SMU's Jennings was, and your draft stock rises. Instead, first of all, you're not the teammate everybody thought you were, and second of all, you didn't help your draft stock whatsoever. So good luck with the NFL draft.
Why not bet on yourself and go play a good game, help your team win the Holiday
Yeah.
Bowl, and improve your draft stock? I mean,
Right.
my goodness, I can understand, okay, maybe a first rounder who's had some injury issues in the past, like a Jordan Morgan a couple of years ago when Oklahoma was also going to sit a player or two. Okay, I don't like it, but I kind of get it. But the third day guys that year, the Jacob Cowing, the Tanner McLaughlin, they played. Who do these guys think they are? Traden Stukes, Dalton Smith, and Genesis Smith, Dalton Johnson and Genesis Smith. These day 3 guys that think they're above playing in the Holiday Bowl. Give me a break. They should have been embarrassed at halftime with the team down 24-0.
I agree. I would have felt so bad if I were them, looking at that on that sideline, looking at what performance was put out there. And
I would have suited up at halftime if I were them.
I would have too. I would have said, Coach, put me in. I can't stand this. But, credit Arizona, and we'll talk more about that, about how they were able to respond. But here's what doesn't get talked about a lot, Jason, and that is because, as I mentioned, it's the Wild West when it comes to NIL and the transfer portal. And you've got a lot of agents telling these young student athletes, and they are student athletes, but we forget about that. But we also don't realize that they're giving them input, and a lot of times it may not be the right answer. I guarantee you that their agent said, you're better off sitting out. You're better off going to the combines or the individual workouts or the team workouts and showing your speed and your ability in that, than risk getting hurt in a bowl game. And I don't agree with it. I'm with you.
What do those agents care about Arizona football? How much do those agents care?
Exactly. All they care about is money. And so they're looking at what's my best way of getting the most out of this kid financially, and it has nothing to do with playing. He's already got his cut of their NIL money, right? Because they've already gotten their NIL money for the 2025 season. It doesn't matter what they do in the bowl game. So they're looking ahead to the NFL now, and I think that's part of this again, Wild West mentality, that there's got to be some laws put into place. Whatever happened to, you can't have an agent until you declare for the NFL draft.
Well,
now,
even if you can, I get having an agent now because these players are being paid. So I get it. But that's the thing. This is a paying job. You can't just opt out of your job. I
agree.
I had 4 good days of work. I'm going to skip Friday.
So maybe part of the NIL agreements have to be you get paid per game. Why don't you do it like the NFL? If you get if you
If you're
decide,
healthy, you
if
got to
you
play.
just decide you're going to walk away from the team in the final game of the season, you think you're going to get your paycheck? You're not going to get your
What's
paycheck.
the legacy now of Traden Stukes, Genesis Smith, and Dalton Johnson? I mean,
They contributed to.
I don't think they're going to get booed if they ever come back to Arizona State. But they're not the heroes. They're not going to be considered the heroes that maybe people thought they were.
They helped them get to 9 wins, and when it was time to go for that very rare 10th win for Arizona football, they decided to step away. So that's their legacy to me, is they put themselves over the team, and that's what I can't stand about right now, what's happening with NIL and with transfer portal.
And for the viewers out there, don't let us influence. If you want to vote a different way on Twitter, that's fine. And we're going to post the results in a few minutes at the end of the show, actually, in about 15 or 20 minutes. And you can also make a comment too, if you want, here on the platforms. Brennan's in a tough spot, the head coach, Brent Brennan. And here's why. If he takes the side of what we're saying, you've lost the relationship with those three guys, and maybe even with some other players, maybe even some future players. So he's really in a no-win situation. So he said what he had to say in the postgame was, those guys have given everything. Those are business decisions with a family. You know, those guys helped us get to this point. He said all the right things, but there's no way he feels that.
No,
he's in a tough spot.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree he is, and he had to say that. He doesn't believe that. There's no way that a head coach that's been around the game as long as Brent Brennan has, that he believes that it's okay for these guys to step away. He's going to back them, because that's what you do, because you've got to put that out there, that if you come to Arizona and you might be an NFL draft pick, we will give you the right to either play or sit out. But that's not what he wanted. That's not what the team wanted. It's a tough spot for the team members as well, because they love these guys. They're part of the, this fraternity of tight Arizona 2025 Wildcat football players. But, deep down, they had to be a little disappointed too.
For sure. The question I'm getting asked is, why did it take the offense so long to get going in the game? Because the defense did its job in the second half, and overall they gave up 24 points. Not terrible. Yeah. It's, why did it take Fafita and the offense so long to get going? Because, those three guys shouldn't have had an effect on the offense, and Arizona really couldn't move the ball in the first half of that game.
No, and SMU has that 80-yard pass that sets up their first touchdown, and they're down 7-0 in a minute and a half, and you're thinking, okay, well, now it's going to be one of those games where it's just going to be, you got to respond every time the other team, it's like a
the ASU bowl game in which we saw a ton of offense. We thought maybe we might go that way.
Maybe it would be that way. But instead, I don't know what the problem was. I don't know why they were so good in the second half, but so bad in the first half. Defense was the same way. It was, you and I said it in our post-game coverage. It was probably the biggest example I've ever seen of a tale of two halves.
Yeah.
I've never,
stats in the second half are staggering, and I don't buy for a minute these games don't matter because they're not part of the college football plaplayoff. No way.
That's not
the Holiday
true.
Bowl matters.
No, that's not true.
Are there tiers? Does this bowl matter more than other bowls?
Yeah.
And do some matter more than others? Yes, but this bowl game matters. They've only been to the Holiday Bowl three times in history. This is the latest they've ever played in the football calendar. I think this bowl. This bowl mattered, and just because it's not in the college football playoff, so what? You're still playing. You're still a competitor, and this still means something for the record books and the history books.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talked about legacy, and your legacy can be, it can be sealed. Like you can elevate it to an even higher level if we talk about Brent Brennan's younger brother who caught the touchdown pass in the Sun Bowl in 1998. Brad Brennan is a guy that everybody knows from that pass, right? Traden Stukes may have picked off a pass and run it, who knows, and run in for a touchdown, and all of a sudden they win that game, and you're thinking, that's a play, a Chuck Cecil play we're going to remember forever. And yet you not only took that away from Arizona Wildcat fans, you took that away from your teammates, and maybe more importantly, you took that opportunity away from yourself.
How about how deceptive that the program and the bowl was, because they only announced this right before, right? So you're selling tickets now for the Holiday Bowl with advertising that these guys are going to be in this game, and you want Arizona fans to go there to the game, and meanwhile they knew for 3 weeks these guys weren't playing. I'm sorry, that's deceptive. That's not right. this availability report is a good thing, and it should come out earlier. And that is wrong to only announce that right before the game. I have a problem
We're
with
going
that.
to disagree about that. We're going to disagree about that. I think there is it's the problem with 4+ weeks off between games, that Arizona's not going to come out in week one and say these three guys have, they're going to know it internally. I don't have a problem with them not making it public. What they did is they took it internally and they figured out, okay, this is going to be our game plan. And they worked for 3 weeks of practice trying to make this how they were going to respond without those three guys. Guess what? It was a terrible plan. It didn't work. They make adjustments at halftime, and that worked. So I don't have as big a problem. I think that's everybody's going to try to keep it. If your quarterback got hurt in practice and nobody saw it, you're going to keep that quiet too. I mean, that's just what you do in football.
All right, so Arizona football finishes with a 9-4 record instead of
still one of only 8 years in franchise program history that Arizona's had 9 wins. It's not that it's not a great season. It's a very good season. It just could have been even better had they been able to pull out that Holiday Bowl.
Yeah, that's for sure. And so they move on to 2026, or as the program is saying, Team 123. I don't know if you've caught that now. That's how they're
with
now
Brent.
referring
Yeah.
These teams. The defensive coordinator Danny Gonzalez did it in the last news conference as well. They're on to Team 123. I suppose, and they pick up a linebacker today. Yep.
Yeah, they did get a linebacker today from Georgetown. Sounds like a real player. They also got a transfer from Illinois, a tight end, but they've also got a 4-star tight end coming in, high schooler too. So I think they're gonna be in good shape. We'll watch that transfer portal. Also, Jason, just because guys go into the transfer portal, we saw it last year, doesn't mean that they're gonna not come back. We saw several of them come back.
Yeah, so, Genesis Smith was in the transfer portal.
Right. So we'll see how it goes. A lot of times, again, you've got agents or family members saying, get in the transfer portal. You can make a lot more money at another school. And then you get out there and it's like you're twiddling your thumbs. And you're like, nobody's calling, nobody's offering. I'll go back to Arizona because they at least are giving me, $100K or whatever. I'm going to go back and play there.
Yeah, I'm not sure if money is the reason that Caden Luke is in the transfer portal. I think he wants to play. If that's my guess, the former CDO running back who just played sparingly on special teams.
Yeah. Well, and his, he's kind of one of those guys that doesn't have a position, right? Being an athlete is a terrific thing in football, but sometimes there's not a position for you. And, they don't use fullbacks like they used to, right? And that's what he was. He was a heck of a, kind of a fullback guy. And it doesn't translate to the college game right now.
All right, we'll circle back to Arizona football at the end of the show as we check the Huddle poll question, but we'll move now to the Arizona basketball team, the number 1 ranked team in the country. Possibly the last week they'll be ranked number 1. It's the 5th straight week they're ranked number 1, not because they're going to lose this week, but because Michigan has been gaining on them in the polls because Michigan has been blowing out ranked opponents. So Arizona was only number 1 by 1 vote and only by 3 first-place votes. So they may only be number 1 for this week. So what? You can't control how many points Michigan's going to beat its opponents by. Arizona's won 8 games in a row by 20 or more points, and they won its last game by 19. So come on, it's not like
and they held the ball at the end. They could have won that game by 20 if they wanted to.
Right.
They held the ball at the end.
Yeah, played a Utah team that's a worse defense in the Big 12.
It may be one of the worst defenses in the country. I think they're ranked like 300 out of the 340 or whatever there are in playing college basketball. You said so what about number 1, and I agree. It's nice to say there's a little swagger you have with being number 1, but Michigan has the metrics that say they should be 1. Arizona has some metrics to say they should be number 1 right now. Ken Palm and the net ranking from the NCAA have Michigan 1 and Arizona 2 very close. So what
bracketology I saw this morning has Michigan as the number 1 seed overall.
And who cares? If so, you're the you're the second of the number 1s. As long as you're the 1 seed out west, and the toughest team you're probably going to have to face is Gonzaga as a 2 seed on your way, way through the bracket. I think you're in great shape if you're Arizona.
And that's how you want to deal with this NCAA tournament. You want the 1 seed in the West, and you want to, go through that way. And so, you'd be playing, if you're the second overall seed, I suppose you'd be playing the 7th best team in the country if there was a 1-2, matchup, if that's how it plays out. But again, a number of teams get upset. things happen and so forth. But they've got the rotation set, and how many minutes these guys playing, and they're rocking and rolling right now. And they might be 20-0 when they go to BYU. The schedule will then get a lot tougher. Houston, Iowa State, BYU are all really, really tough teams. They're not going to go through this regular season unscathed. I don't know that you want them to. I would like to see them go 20-0 and have that game at BYU, and then just kind of relax.
That would be nice.
Yeah, just relax if they lose a road game at BYU and they're 20-0 because that gymnasium is going absolutely nuts. Things happen, right? And so that's kind of where I want to see them these next few games. I don't want to see them get upset by a team that they should beat. If they lose on the road to one of those great teams, I can handle that.
Yeah, I agree. We sort of readjusted our expectations going from the Pac-12 last year to the Big 12 last year, right? We knew that you're going to have a handful of losses if you're not at the top of your game. And Arizona had that little rough patch towards the end of the regular season where they lost at Iowa State, they lost at Kansas, but then they bounced back in the Big 12 tournament. So my point is, you're going to have a couple of losses, maybe a few losses when you get to the really tough part of that Big 12 schedule. So yeah, I'm with you. You'd like to see, you get past even BYU and maybe you get through this whole month and you're still undefeated. Maybe. I'm saying maybe. And then things get a little bit more difficult when you have Kansas twice, you're at Houston, you're at Baylor, Iowa State, you go on and on and on. It gets tough. It gets really tough.
All right. The other thing that happened over the last few days involving Arizona athletics, Pat, was the unfortunate situation, unless you're a Steeler fan, of what happened with Tyler Loop and the missed field goal. So Tyler Loop is the Arizona Wildcat kicker who was a rookie this year with the Ravens, replaced longtime kicker Justin Tucker, who had some off-the-field issues. Loop has a 44-yard field goal there to win the game. It's the first time in over 60,000 NFL field goals that a field goal happened at the end of the game as time expired, with two teams where their playoff hopes, each of them rested on this kick, right? So, yeah, I mean, we've seen, the other dramatic kick, obviously, to end Super Bowls. We've seen a couple of those, but this was the first time it happened in the last week of the regular season. Loop misses the kick, goes wide right. First field goal he missed under 50 yards all year. Of course, he feels terrible. There's the image or a little bit of video of John Harbaugh, the Ravens coach, trying to console him in the tunnel going to the locker room. There's also the image of Lamar Jackson throwing something, who was upset. Anyway, we just learned just kind of moments ago that the Ravens looks like they got rid of John Harbaugh.
That's according to Adam Schefter. Yeah, I think it's official.
Too bad, because if Loop can't feel any worse, here's this kicker, here's this coach that just consoled you. But if you had made the kick, everybody would be getting ready for the game this week.
So they would be hosting the Texans.
Even worse, you got the whole offseason to think about. So such is the life of a kicker.
Yeah, it is, and there's Ian Rappaport saying it as well. I think it's pretty well out there that John Harbaugh is done. I think first of all, full disclosure, I've said it before. A lot like Ali Farhang here in town. I'm a big Steeler fan. My wife is from the Pittsburgh area and have always been a Steeler fan. And I that was one of those tough situations where I didn't want to see it. As a Wildcat fan, I want Tyler Loop to succeed because he's a really good kicker. But in that situation, I just knew, Jason, having spent a lot of time covering the Steelers back in the day at Heinz Field, now Acrisure Stadium, that is a really tough place to kick. And it becomes more difficult on cold nights with a little bit of a swirling wind. He said he hit it a little bit. It was a little further down on his
because there wasn't much wind that night, though.
No, but did you saw the Steelers' extra point was missed as well?
No, I saw.
That's the only reason this kick meant win or loss. Otherwise, it was just to go to overtime. It's always been a very difficult place to kick. The grass is not great. The field is actual grass, and it's just been ever since day one of that stadium. Opposing kickers, especially those who are kicking there for the first time, have had a real struggle. And Boswell, the kicker for the Steelers, is one of the most accurate kickers in the history of the game, and he missed that extra point. So it's not easy as kickers. But here's what I say about the whole situation. The Ravens and Steelers were not good this year. They both struggled. They both were up and down, mainly down. it came down to a great knockdown, drag 'em out slugfest in Pittsburgh. But, both teams had other chances to win games earlier in the year. Both teams had chances to maybe score more points earlier in this game. To put it all on Tyler Loop is categorically unfair. It's just not right for the Ravens fans to say we lost a chance on going to the playoffs because of Tyler Loop missing a field goal. It's easy to focus on it. Is he a part of it? Of course he is. John Harbaugh is not fired today because Tyler Loop missed that field goal. John Harbaugh is fired today because they only won 8 games this year. They went 8-10, and they've had failure after failure after failure in the playoffs. And so that's why the Ravens decided it's time to move on.
Yeah, well, they've had some tough luck with some fumbles and some things that have gone wrong.
Without question.
Yeah,
without question. But sometimes it's sometimes an organization just looks at it and says, we just got to move on.
Not the Jets, though. They're bringing back Aaron Glenn, first team in NFL history to not have an interception the whole season. And the thing about that is that he was a defensive back.
Right.
Jason,
you can at some point in a 17-game schedule, doesn't a ball get tipped at the line of scrimmage or go through the hands of a receiver and a defensive back is there or a linebacker is there?
End of the half situation where the guy's chucking it in the end zone.
How do you not get a single interception in 17 games? It's unbelievable.
And the thing is, and this is getting too far ahead of things, if you think Arch Manning's family is going to let him go to the Jets, you can
no way. Same situation with San Diego that they had.
I'm curious, Pat, to see the results of our Huddle poll question, and that goes back to Arizona football. Do you think those 3 guys should have opted out of the Holiday Bowl? Yes, to protect their NFL investment, or no, B, they should have played. And you can vote on X. So we're going to bring up the results here in just a second here with our Huddle poll question. Pat and I agreed on this one. They should have played in the Holiday Bowl. This was not okay. My guess is about 2/3 people probably see it our way. I'm thinking maybe 30% are going.
There it is.
I got it.
Yep.
I nailed it.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, not team players. So it was 70-30. Yeah, that's about what I thought.
Now, having said that, it's still up to the individual. I would never, if I were Brent Brennan, I wouldn't have pressured them either. I just would have had a conversation and said, "Are you doing that? Are you doing this?"
By the time they tell them, it's not like they're still deciding. Like the decision.
No, probably not. But I think this is
can change somebody's mind.
These are the conversations you'd like to have with those players that are those fringe players. If you're, as we said, if you're a first or second round draft pick and you're worried about your health and an injury, I get it. But when you're talking about these guys that may not even get drafted, or if they do, we're talking 3rd day, that's when you have to say to yourself, you realize you're going to be standing on the sidelines in street clothes and you're going to be missing this game. And your teammates are going to be disappointed in you for not being there. I would have had that conversation. I'm sure that a conversation similar to that was had.
Yeah, I mean, to me, if there's a senior day, I mean, those are the senior day, a pro day, and we're invited. Those are the 3 guys who opted out of the Holiday Bowl who are now trying to do it to a pro day. Those pro days have changed. I know that T-Max was private, but some other ones in the past have been public. But the point being is that's part of that. What they're going to be known as is the guys who opted out of the Holiday Bowl.
Well, and not only that, you want to be invited right to the workout and get a lot of eyes.
And if
on
you're an NFL general manager, do you care? And you're looking at these guys and these guys.
No.
Well, then that kind of affirms their decision. Then,
maybe.
I think you should care a little bit. I think you should say,
I
don't want a guy who's going to sit on my team because he's got a bruised ankle. I want a guy who's going to go back in the game.
Well, maybe if it came down to, Genesis Smith and another guy, and you think about, maybe you'll go with the other guy. I don't know. But what I was going to say about the combine is, these guys might not even get invited to the combine. Like, you better hope you get invited to the combine, because then you look really silly, because you're not even good enough to be, in that group that gets a second harder look with all eyes of the NFL on you. So they better hope they get invited.
All right, that's our Huddle poll question, and that is our Huddle, the first one of 2026. Glad to be back for the new calendar year, and we're going to maybe try some different things here on the Huddle this year, kind of shake it up a little bit and try some new things and see how they go as we kind of progress here in 2026. All right. For Pat Parris, I'm Jason Barr. Thanks, everybody. It's been The Huddle, KGUN 9's weekly streaming sports talk show. We'll see you right back here next week.